We're Britt and Mike, and this is Leah. We're converting our 2021 Ford Transit van into a home on wheels. In this week's video, we're walking through a step-by-step tutorial on how we attached a headliner shelf in our van without the factory headliner storage. Hey everyone, today has not been a good day for my allergies, so please ignore this situation, but I wanted to give a little bit of context to start off this video. So we have a 2021 Transit, and if you have a newer Transit, you might know starting in 2020, that was the last year that they had the stock headliner shelf for the new vans, and so starting in 2021 that became an option, and we decided not to take that option because we figured, well, we were just going to build our own shelf and it would be bigger, but we didn't realize at the time that some of the kits where you get a kit that comes with like a template shelf from, I think Vancillary is like the big one. Those kits actually rely on having the stock headliner shelf to attach your bigger shelf to. So for 2021 going forward, there wasn't a ton of information about how to create a bigger shelf when you don't have that factory shelf already in there. Mike found this one forum post on a transit forum and decided to do that. So that's what this video is, and that's why it is so long and detailed. So we hope it's helpful. Hi everyone!
Hey guys!
Welcome back to the van build series that never ends. We are on episode 19 and we are starting on our headliner shelf.
Yeah, so the first thing I gotta do is rip out this headliner so I can attach my brackets.
What he said.
So the first step is right in the middle here, right around here. There's a couple plugs. You can see these little things protruding. I believe that's about what the plugs are. And this one right here, there's a little black, kind of like a handle-shaped plug. You reach in, you pop a couple fingers inside that plug, and then when you pull down right there, that'll keep this from becoming detached from the little clips that hold it in place. So that's a great place to start. I'm not going to do it right now because this is super tight up against my board that I have here, but you just pop your fingers in there. And you could probably get away with grabbing this by the side or something and pulling down on it, but the safest way is to get your fingers inside that plug and then pull it down and pop it out. Okay, so next step, there is one of these on each side of the van. You literally just pull it down, and then inside there is a bolt you need to take out. I believe I used a 5/16 nut driver to remove these. It was pretty quick and easy with my driver. Okay, so next step, there is one of these plugs on either side of the van, both driver and passenger side. They come out really easily, and then up inside here there is either a T20 or a T25 screw. Just take those two out and we're on to the next step. Okay, next step is the visors, and if you look on either side, this little plastic piece down here pops down. You can do it with your fingers, and then on the other side, this little piece right here pops forward. And then inside of there is either a T20 or T25 Torx bit screw. So you pop those out, and then on the ends, the wider ends, there is a little plug. You have to unplug that, and then we're on to the next one. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that when you're taking these out on this end, the plastic piece kind of hooks in, and you'll need to like pull it down and out away from that hook to get it out of there. It's probably going to take a little bit of work to get it out, but once you do, it's relatively painless. Putting it back in was actually a lot tougher than taking it out. Okay, and then lastly is this center piece here with the lights in it. If you grab this at the top, you can kind of pull it down. There's just two metal clips that hold it in place, one on either side. It comes out relatively easily. Just be careful not to pull too hard because there are wiring plugs that are attached to the back of this. You'll need to disconnect three plugs to get this out. And then once you get it out, there are two more additional plugs up inside there that you'll need to disconnect in order to take the headliner out. Once you do all that, there is another screw up there. I believe it is a 7mm bolt. So a 7mm socket is the easiest way to get it out. And then there's also a little orange clip, just like the one in the back that we pulled down. This is like the first step. You'll just have to pull down up here as well in order to get the headliner out of the front. Once you do all that, taking the headliner out is pretty simple. It kind of goes down and attaches. It just goes down inside of these pillars here on the front, and then there's a little weather seal that goes around the top here. You can literally just pull it out of that this way, and the whole thing should just come right out. I've also taken the liberty of taking out the foam blocks on both sides. They were kind of a pain to get out because I did build my ceiling and my wall around them. They follow all the contours of the blocks. So what I'm probably gonna do is trim off a little bit of the excess on the top that I don't really need, so I don't have to squeeze the block back up inside this cavity, and just make it a little bit easier to fit up in there, because you won't be able to see the top of it anyways. It'll just make my life a lot easier. There are 2 tabs. I believe one goes here and one goes over here, and they're really easy to pop out. Basically what I usually do, and what I've done every time actually so far, is just grab the block by that part and just pop it out a little bit, and then this tab should pop out, and then you can just reach in and grab it. I tried using pliers the first time I went to take it out and ended up damaging the clips, the first clip that I did anyways, and so I kind of learned my lesson from that. If you just pull on it a little bit, give it a little tug, it comes out relatively easily. After taking the headliner off, I've gone and used a jigsaw to notch out this plastic on both sides. So I've just gone ahead and notched this out for my L brackets. I'm gonna actually trim these L brackets down. They're a little tall for what I wanna do, but by trimming that plastic out, now this can come up almost flush with the headliner. And then it'll just mount right back down in here. I'll have to drill a little hole through this. And I think I'm gonna do another hole back here instead of using this one, because this is pretty close to the edge. But if I do one like right here, then it should have a pretty good grip on this and hold up pretty well. So I've done that on both sides. Once I get these holes drilled, I can go ahead and detach the brackets with some nylon lock nuts so they won't go anywhere. And then we can put the headliner back in and continue attaching it. Good morning, everyone. I'm back working on the headliner shelf again, but I just wanted to share something real quick. Apparently, when you disconnect your headliner, somewhere one of those connections is actually the relay for the car fob. So your, unlock, lock button on your little fob that you get. And funny thing is, I locked the van manually yesterday and didn't think anything of it. When I came here this morning, I had to unlock it with the key, but when you unlock it with the key, the security system will kick on and the car alarm will go off until you start the car. So that was kind of difficult for me, considering I unlocked the door here. My seat was completely sideways and I couldn't get in the van to start the car. So I had to jump up and reach around the steering wheel underneath the bottom and start the car that way. But oh my god, yeah, it was a wake-up call this morning. All right, so yesterday you saw me trimming these brackets down, and now you can see what they're going to look like when they're in place. So by cutting out this little piece of plastic here, the bracket can sit all the way flush with this plastic piece that sits right up against the headliner shelf. So that allows the bracket to be as close to the headliner shelf as possible and allows it to sit nicely on this little ledge back here. But as you can see, with it pushed all the way to the shelf, the hole is just too far forward on the bracket that I chose. So what I'm gonna have to do is drill another hole back in here somewhere. And then once I have my holes drilled on all these brackets, then I can mark it out on this and drill my hole out on the actual metal piece. But yeah, that's basically what it's gonna look like on both sides. Just imagine the headliner reinstalled with holes drilled through it, and then I'll have to reach in here and hold a wrench on here while I tighten the L brackets in place. All right, guys, now that I've figured out where I'm gonna drill my holes in here, after getting my holes drilled in my brackets and using them as a template, I went ahead and prepped the areas. So I've taken some drop sheeting and some painter's tape and taped up around all the airbags. Basically what I'm doing here is preventing any metal shavings from the holes that I'm about to drill out from getting inside the airbags, because God forbid the airbags ever deploy and there's little metal shavings in there, they could become shrapnel very easily. So I think it's better to be safe than sorry. I Got my holes drilled on both sides, passenger and driver, front and back. I cleaned up the holes with my deburring tool and put some clean metal primer around the edges just to prevent any rust from happening. Now we're ready to go ahead and attach our brackets. I've gone ahead and attached my brackets on both the driver's side and the passenger side of the van. They are nice and sturdy, nice and flush, and I'm really happy with how they came out. So I went with 1/4 inch stainless steel bolts with a nylon lock nut on the bottom, and those seem to be short enough that they work with this plastic piece reinstalled on the van. So I took this out to attach the brackets, just made it a lot easier, and super easy to put back in once I was done. I opted for these steel L brackets that I got from Home Depot. I went with the ones that were most resistant to rust, and they seem to be really strong. Like, there's no bending these with my hands. So it would take a significant amount of weight to damage the brackets or this shelf up here, and it's more likely that the shelf itself would break before these brackets. Alright, so now for the fun part. I'm gonna have to remount my headliner into the cavity here, get it all hooked back into place so that I can figure out exactly where I need to drill my holes on the headliner. I think the way I'm going to do that is attach everything and then reach in from the backside and put something through the hole on my bracket and then puncture the headliner on the other side. I think that's probably the easiest way to find the correct spot to drill the holes. Alright guys, the headliner reinstallation was a success. All in all, I think it took me about 20 minutes to put it back in. Super easy. And what I'm working on right now is getting my holes drilled in the headliner. So right here where the shelf is going to go, I've taken a punch from the backside, reached in through the eyes, like the eyelets of the brackets that I installed, and punched a hole through the headliner in the front and the back. You can see it's pretty easy to mark where my holes are. Got one here and one here. And all I got to do is go through with my 1-inch hole saw. I think it's about 1/8 actually, and cut out my holes. I've already done it on the passenger side. It's pretty easy. And you can see my brackets right there behind it. So yeah, we're getting along pretty quickly. I've been working on this since yesterday, and you know, I'm already almost ready to install the L tracks that are going to go on here for the headliner shelf. So yeah, it's going really quick. I got my holes drilled out, they look nice, everything lines up the way it should, but I can't start on the next step until I receive a package that I ordered from Grainger. It was supposed to be here yesterday and it got delayed, so now I'm probably looking at tomorrow. What's up everyone? Our package that we were waiting for yesterday arrived not 10 minutes after I put the camera down and started cleaning that for the day. So we can get started on the next step, and basically what I was waiting for was this aluminum rod stock. I'm gonna use it pretty much as a spacer that goes between our brackets and the angled aluminum pieces that are gonna run along the top of the headliner shelf. Because as you can see, if this is mounted flush with the shelf or with the headliner, then it's at an angle. It needs to be flat, which is where these aluminum pieces are gonna come in handy. I'm gonna cut them flat so that this can sit flat. It's basically like a big washer that's gonna be on there, and it's gonna make sure that our brackets hold this aluminum angled aluminum at a nice flat level surface. So the first thing I need to do is cut this to length and drill holes directly in the center of it, just like a big washer, like I said. Alright guys, now that I've fabricated the spacers that we're going to use, I need to figure out exactly where I need to drill my holes in the 1/8 inch by 1.5 inch angled aluminum pieces that are going to hold our headliner shelf into place. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Alright, so I should have taken some video of this, but in true Mike fashion, I did not. So before I put the headliner back into the van, I took a scrap piece of 1/4 inch plywood and made a template for the holes that are going to go into the angled aluminum. So, as you can see, this side, D for driver side, arrow points to the front. P for passenger side, arrow points to the front. So all I got to do is flip this around either way to figure out exactly where my holes go. And I've already test fitted this in place, and it fits like a charm. Let me show you. Okay, so I had to flip the piece around backwards, but you're gonna get the gist of it anyways. These are going through our spacers, through the plywood, and all the way back through the brackets back here. So we can tell by test fitting it in here that it's gonna work in the position that we have it. And as you can see, it spaces everything out with the spacers so that there is a little bit of a gap at the bottom, not at the top. Since this curves in, and we want this shelf to be flat, that's going to be necessary. So now all I got to do is take this piece back to my angled aluminum piece and transfer it over. Should be relatively easy. So I got the idea to build the headliner shelf in this style from a username Hurtin, Hurttin, over at Ford Transit USA forums. And I don't want to take credit for his work. This was his idea. This is something that I'm taking and putting in our van and just showing you guys how we do it. So shout out to Hurtin for the great advice here on how to do this. And yeah, I think that the aluminum rod stock is a great way to not only keep your shelf flat and even, but also to distribute the weight to your brackets. And since we're using steel brackets, they're pretty strong. So, you know, I'm not concerned about our shelf sagging or falling down in the future. If there's any failures, it's certainly not going to be on the brackets or the aluminum rod stock. Alright guys, I just finished fabricating my brackets and I'm really happy how they came out. Let me show them to you. So I made them so that the bolts that I chose will have a very low profile. I've recessed these holes just a little bit. And then I've done the same thing on the bottom so that when we attach the wood shelf that's going to be in there, the plywood shelf, it will also be pretty well concealed. Now just to install these things. Alright guys, I just finished installing the brackets and I'm really happy with how they've come out. So that is super solid. The visors aren't going to go up anymore, all the way anymore, so that's just something we're going to have to get used to. But yeah, I am so happy with how strong this is. If you look down the side, you can see how flat it is as opposed to this too. So there is one caveat with these, with this style, and I probably could have corrected it a little bit if I wanted to, but the shelf is going to angle down a little bit towards the front. That's actually fine because we're mostly going to store our window shades up here, and honestly having the slope like this will just kind of prevent stuff from falling out when we hit the gas and stuff like that. So you might notice it if I did it from this angle, showed you. Alright, so next step, I need to build a template for our ply that we're going to cut out. And then I'm hoping to get some Baltic birch or something really strong and do like a 1/2 inch and cut it to size and pop it in.
It's Sunday. We are out here in the garage. Mike has a template for our headliner shelf that he made out of cardboard. We are going to cut out our shelf. We're gonna cut a hole into this disgustingly expensive plywood.
Yeah, this is a 1/2 inch sheet of Baltic birch. And with the price of wood right now, you can already imagine it was pricey.
But yeah, I guess it'll last forever, right?
That's the plan.
We're gonna use this for our shelf and all of our cabinets, so we bought a few pieces.
Yeah. This is only 1/2 inch, but the other ones are all 3/4 inch, so our cabinetry should be really sturdy.
I'm the assistant today.
All right, guys, moment of truth. Did I make a huge mistake? I think it looks pretty good.
I think so too. It's flush up against the roof up here. No gaps.
And it'll look even better once we wrap it.
Yeah.
With the cloth. And I know that people say that plywood sags over time when you build headliner shelves. That's why we went with a high quality plywood. And we're gonna do an edge across the back here, and that should help strengthen it up as well.
So here's the clearance. Mike is 6'2", and when he's sitting in the driver's seat, he's got lots of room for activities.
Yeah.
Good job!
I like it. All right, so we thought it might be helpful to run over what measurements this comes out at. So you need a sheet of plywood that's approximately 50 inches and 3/4 wide and 20 and 7/8 deep. On the sides, going from the back, approximately 18 inches from the back up to the front here. And then you would go in approximately 19 and 3/4 from each side, and then up 20 and 7/8 to the top here. So you're gonna all the way to the top, you can notch this out, and that way you can just figure out exactly how to cut this corner off. So one little notch here, one notch here, straight line across it. Now you can cut this corner off. Same thing in the other side. And then this is about 20 and 3/8 in the middle. So that's kind of how far you want to drop it in here. Just another, what is that? Yeah, that's about 4/8 inch. So 1/2 inch in right here. If that helps. If not, I mean, you can do it the old fashioned way, putting it in and trying to trace it out and basically do what I did. But I thought that might help to give you some, like a base of where to start.
Alright, so next Mike is going to cut a 1-inch lip that's going to be tacked on top of the edge of our shelf, and that'll just give it a little bit more stability, like you said, to prevent it from bowing, and for whatever a 1-inch lip is worth for keeping everything in the shelf. So yeah. Alright, we got our lip glued and nailed in, and we're gonna let that sit with the clamps overnight, come back tomorrow, and wrap it.
Yep. Good morning from California, where it is actually surprisingly raining this morning. Okay, so the next step I need to do is wrap the headliner shelf in the headliner material that I bought to kind of match the headliner that we have in the van. So I picked up this light gray headliner material off of Amazon. The reviews weren't great. The way they ship it, it'll actually leave these lines in the material. I just went over them with a iron and a rag and on a low setting and just iron those wrinkles out. So what I've got to do now is take my 3M adhesive, spray a nice 6-inch strip right down the center of this board, and smooth it out with a paint spreader. It's a really soft plastic material. You can just flatten it out with it. And once that piece is in place, then I can glue down the rest of one side, do the other side, flip the board over, and then staple it around on the back side or glue it around on the back side. Probably a little combination of the both. Okay, so now that I have the other side adhered, I've taken the board, flipped it over, and now I'm gonna trim along these edges. I don't need a huge overlay of material, so I'm gonna trim it back so it's very minimal around the whole thing. On this end, I'll have to be a little bit more because I want it to go around the lip, and then I'm gonna go through and staple everything up. All right, guys, I'm gonna give you one of those MySpace angles so you can see this thing. Check it out. Man, I'm so happy with how this came out. And here's a look at the back side. I'm not worried about covering up these edges since it's going to be up high and kind of out of the way. And this is just literally for storing our linens and window covers and that type of stuff. I think it looks good enough for that. All right, now for the moment of truth. Let's test fit it, see how it looks. You know what, guys, I think I've outdone myself this time. I'm proud of this one. Check it out. Alright guys, finishing touches. I went ahead and attached this with bolts that go all the way through the board, and I went ahead and put the foam blocks back in so we can see the finished product.
Snaps for Mike.
Alright guys, I think that's gonna do it for this video. Probably never heard me say this before, but I'm really happy with the way it came out.
I'm also really happy with the way it came out. Good job.
Thanks. A little fun fact, the padding does help a lot if you bump your head, because I've already bumped my head on it.
We're gonna try not to do that anymore.
Yeah. First and last time, hopefully.
We're gonna wrap the vlog up here. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.
Bye guys.